So, Rami, we're going to switch gears and discuss briefly before we move to the Q&A a truly mind-boggling development in Miami. Why don't you take it away, Rami? And
Yes,
for those who
absolutely.
haven't heard,
So on Saturday, a gentleman of the name of um Mordecai Braffman, 27 years old, stepped out of his truck and opened fire with a semi-automatic handgun at a vehicle that passed by, which hit one victim in the left shoulder and another one basically on the left forearm. And Mordecai shot 17 times. When he was arrested by the police in custody, he admitted that he, quote unquote, killed two Palestinians. Well, it turns out that they weren't killed; they were just injured, wounded, and then the two wounded, quote unquote, Palestinians ended up making a post on Twitter saying, um, saying my father and I went through a murder attempt against an anti-Semitic background. So immediately paid the anti-Semitic card, and it turns out that they said death to Arabs. And these two people were not Palestinians. Turns out they were actually two Israeli tourists enjoying sunny Miami. I think this shows the complete delusion of the Israeli Zionist mindset, where one is ready to shoot anyone who looks remotely Palestinian and takes pride in it. And then the people getting attacked end up out of the blue assuming that any attack against them has to be a attack on Jews, end up also saying death to Arabs. So truly it's the Zionist mentality is to hate so much that you're ready to hate yourself, and then regardless of what's behind it, you blame it on the Arabs, you blame it on the Palestinians. It's I think this situations precisely demonstrate the absurdity of Zionism and its danger that it brings to the Western world.
here. And why don't you just pull up that post from the two victims? This would be image 13, Rami. And you can see there uh, that they explicitly, the two Israelis who were shot, and by the way, the shooter pumped apparently 17 bullets into this vehicle. He was clearly trying to kill these people. He thought he had killed them, but apparently he's a very bad shooter. And you'll see there at the very end, they say, Am Yisrael Shai, death to Arabs. And then they even put this little emoji, which is like the hands clasped in prayer, as if they're appealing to the Almighty to kill all Arabs. I mean, this is truly mind-blowing stuff. But the part that I think, should be most alarming to us, Rami, if you could pull up image 12, please. This is from a Reuters article, which was published the last day or two. And if you look in the last paragraph of this excerpt that we've put up on the screen, they're talking about other incidents of anti-Palestinian or anti-Arab racism. Other U.S. incidents include the attempting drowning of a 3-year-old Palestinian American girl in Texas, the fatal stabbing of a 6-year-old Palestinian American boy in Illinois, the stabbing of a Palestinian American man in Texas, the beating of a Muslim man in New York, a violent mob attack on pro-Palestinian protesters in California, and the shooting of 3 Palestinian American students in Vermont. A question I ask is, at what point does mass violence against Palestinians and other Arabs reach an epidemic level? Is this an epidemic level? I think it actually might qualify as an epidemic. And let's bear in mind here that probably there are a lot of incidents in which Palestinians and other members of the Arab American community are threatened with violence that they don't report or never make it into the media. And there are probably incidents, not necessarily involving deadly violence, but assaults, minor injuries, and so forth, which also don't get reported to the police or they don't end up appearing in the media. I think it's fair to assume that what you see summarized here, which are all egregious, heinous acts of racist violence, is really the tip of the iceberg. And what is most alarming to me about all of this is the political elite's reaction. They have been virtually radio silent on this event. And just ask yourself, if the shooter had been an Arab, how would the political elite in the United States have acted? I think we can all say safely, based on the record of the U.S. political elite, the rich record of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab racism and discrimination, and their fanatical commitment to the Zionist project, that pretty much every politician in the United States would have taken the opportunity to condemn this shooting, but they have been radio silent. So, racism, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab racism goes to the very top. It sits in the White House. It sits in the Senate. It's well ensconced in the United States Congress. And that is indeed why the U.S. provided boundless, unlimited amounts of munitions to Israel as it was carrying out a blatant genocide. So I fear very much for our comrades in the Palestinian Arab community. And I mean, I hesitate to use the phrase wake-up call because there were wake-up calls many years ago. But if this isn't a wake-up call to the dangers confronting the Palestinian and Arab community in the United States and other Western states, I don't know what is.
Dimitri, when there's the slightest attack against the Jewish community in the West, without even knowing who the perpetrator is, without the slightest investigation, the government immediately releases security package, like aid subsidies to protect these places of worship. But when it comes to Palestinians getting shot, and even when they hallucinate into seeing a Palestinian and turns out that they get shot, there's not a word by leaders, but also the government is then withholding any form of material support that could come to their defense. I'm not saying the police is the best people to defend Palestinians. We know that they side with the oppressors and they get traded in Israel as well, not to mention Cop City. So it's just absurd. I think it's been quite a long time that we've known that the government will just keep up with double standards. They'll protect the ones that are harming the Palestinians, even within the United States, even within Canada. Dimitri, this reminds me of a case in the UK where Keir Starmer got angry that someone from Gaza was able to use the refugee relocation package to enter the UK using the Ukrainian relocation system. And then Keir Starmer condemned it, saying that it's inappropriate and that program is only for Ukrainians and not to be used by Palestinians. But a judge ruled that Palestinians could still use it. And that just shows continuously that there is a whole coordinated effort to make sure that Palestinians are not provided any form of support and that they should accept really to live as second-class citizens. What's his name again? The minister of immigration who is based in Atwater, Montreal.
Mark Miller.
Mark Miller.
Yes.
His program to bring Palestinians into Canada, I think he was supposed to bring 6,000 Palestinians from Gaza. I think by over a year or so, only like 2-3 people were able to use this program. And that just shows that there's a coordinated effort by the state to keep putting the Palestinians in danger. So I'm not surprised, Dimitri, that they're not going to say shit when they shoot when there's an attempted hate crime against Palestinians. Yeah,
it's not surprising, as horrifying as it is. And just let me point out, from March 2022 to April 2024, the Canadian government approved 962,612 applications for Ukrainian refugees to come to Canada, and almost 300,000 came. So the number of Palestinians, and no court has adjudged that Russia is committing genocide or a plausible genocide in Ukraine, whereas the International Court of Justice has adjudged that it's plausible that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. And yet, they've taken at most in Canada a few hundred Palestinians from Gaza while taking in 300,000 Ukrainians after approving almost 1 million applications. If that isn't racism, obvious discrimination, I don't know what is.